Hello, friends, and welcome to the Powerful Podcast. I'm your host, AJ McCord. In this podcast, we introduce you to powerful women who are changing the game in and outside of their field of play. These are women's stories, women who happen to be doing things that many of us can only dream of, but the lessons and inspiration they share is universal. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Powerful Podcast. I'm your host, AJ McCord, and we are getting so close to Milan Cortina and all of the sports officially being underway, which means today we're heading to Cortina. It is the site of women's alpine skiing as well as all the sliding sports. Kaysha Love is our guest for this podcast, and she is an incredible former gymnast, former track star, turned into one of the best bobsledders in the world. In this episode, we talk about the nitty-gritty of what it takes to become an Olympian in one of these niche sports, as well as legacy, the one that Kaysha is following and the one that she's creating. This episode for me is really about standing in your purpose and feeling confident of where you're moving. Kaysha has this beautiful confidence that she carries with her. And when I tell you it's contagious, I mean it in the best way possible. So I hope by the end of this episode, you feel a little bit more contagiously powerful because of Kaysha Love. And so, with no further ado, welcome to the Powerful Podcast. Kaysha Love, I am so excited to be talking to you from where in the world are you?
Thanks, AJ. Thanks for having me, girlfriend. I am in Altenburg, Germany, and this feels like the middle of nowhere. I'm basically in the woods out here in Germany, but we're getting ready for our last World Cup race of the season, and we couldn't be more excited going into the Olympics.
Everyone thinks it's just so glamorous. You travel to all these places, you get to do all these things, and the reality is there are some long hours, some late nights, some places without Wi-Fi in the middle of nowhere as you're getting ready to represent Team USA.
Yeah, I will say when I came into the sport, that was definitely my impression that all Olympic sports were sexy and cool and just awesome, right? And when I came into my first bobsled race in Europe, I was just like, this is different. This is a bit of a culture shock. This is interesting, but nevertheless, love it out here, right? It's so much fun to be able to experience all these different cultures and compete at the world's highest stage on these World Cup races, but definitely was not expecting to take Zoom calls in my car at a train station because my hotel doesn't have Wi-Fi, but that's okay.
Look, you bring the glamour no matter where you are. I want to go back to the beginning of how you found yourself on this crazy journey. It is so fun always to hear, especially with these niche Olympic sports, how athletes found their way into it. You were a former gymnast, former track athlete. How did you find bobsled?
Yes, ma'am. So gymnastics I think is definitely my passion. That was something that I grew up doing, absolutely loved it. And then I felt like with gymnastics, there was not quite the community involvement, especially through my high school, that I was really looking for. And so I remember telling my mom that I wanted to try a different sport that was within my high school. So I felt a little bit more connected within the community. And my mom kind of made a joke of just, you should try track. Nobody gets cut from the track team. The teams are massive, and it's a good way to make friends and connect with your friends in high school. And so jokingly I took her up for it. I told her I hate running, but the reality is nobody got cut from that team, so there wasn't a fear that I wasn't going to make it. So
yeah, spoken like a true gymnast, might I add, because I was a former competitive gymnast, and to this day I'm like, if it's further than 71 feet, which is how far it was from the vault, from the vault runway to the vault, I was like, I'm not interested. This is not for me. I don't run as a general rule. So I feel that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you know exactly what it is. So my first track meet, I was a couple hundredths away from breaking the state record, and my mom was like, hey, listen, I think this is how we can pay for college. We're paying a lot of money for gym, and if this isn't something that you're really loving, maybe we should try track and field. And went into track and field full head over heels for it, and then ended up getting a scholarship at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And I remember telling my mom, I'm picking Vegas for two reasons. I'm passionate about hospitality, and it's the warmest place in the country. It never snows. I don't ever have to worry about shoveling my lane to run at a track meet in March, because sometimes it snows in March. And she was like, all right, I understand. And then it wasn't until 8 years later that I'm at nationals. There's a bobsled coach, and he confronts me and basically says that I'm doing the wrong sport, and that if I gave bobsled a shot, that I could potentially become an Olympian. And I just remember looking at him dude, you're crazy. Like, I don't know anything about bobsled, and it's a winter sport at that, and the only thing I know is Cool Runnings. And he just said, that's all you need to know. Like, track and field had been preparing you for the last 8 years for bobsled. The way you train for track is the way you train for bobsled, and those mechanics and the technique behind being a successful 100-meter sprinter is how you're going to be a successful bobsled pusher. So I said, okay, I'll take your word for it. And he brought me out to Lake Placid, New York, and I tried a rookie camp and absolutely loved it. Like, I just loved the concept of pushing the sled. When I watched the first sled come by through one of these curves, like, just the adrenaline and the sound and just the overall just craziness of the sport, it was genuinely like really epic to like watch it and feel it in person. And so I had just been chasing that Olympic dream. I wanted to be an Olympian in gymnastics, and then I wanted to be an Olympian in track and field. And every sport I showed talent and potential to potentially be like an Olympian or potentially be one of the best in the world in that event, but it just never worked out. So when this coach was very adamant about like the Olympics, like that was enough for me to be like, yep, I am doing this sport. I'm going head over heels for it. It's going to happen in one way or another. And then 8 months later, I became an Olympian.
Which was so fast. And we're going to get to the fast track that you absolutely just skyrocketed down to become an Olympian for the first time. But I want to go back to one of the key things that is always so interesting to me when we're talking about the sliding sports in particular, right? Bobsled, skeleton, and luge. You mentioned how much you were excited about the adrenaline. That is something that, coming from a track background, maybe you wouldn't have had that same like urge with the adrenaline, because it's, it's running, and not that there can't be injuries, but it's a very different kind of, intensity than a sport like bobsled. But in gymnastics, did you feel like track had maybe not filled something that like a whole gymnastic had left, because there wasn't as much adrenaline in the track?
Oh, absolutely, for sure. And that's why I think still to this day that I still think that gymnastics is my passion, because I have yet to find something that could fill that hole or those shoes like the way gymnastics did. Just being able to, just the way it teaches you like self-confidence and body awareness, and to be able to learn a new skill or a new trick and then compete and show not only yourself that you're capable of doing like the things that you practice in the gym, but then you can show your coaches and your family and your friends. And in track and field, I didn't feel that sensation as much, and in bobsled, like that became a lot closer to Phil. And then as soon as I transitioned into the pilot role, this has probably been the closest thing that I have found to what I was experiencing in gymnastics. And in gymnastics, you get that like satisfaction of like learning the skill on the ground, and then on the line on the ground, and then on a low beam, a medium beam, a high beam, and then a beam that's like on the competition floor, right? So I feel the same way about like piloting. You slowly start working your way up, and this piloting role takes years to actually start seeing like consistent results. And when you start to see those consistent results, it really reminds me of gymnastics, and I love that.
So we're going to sidebar after you come home with a medal from Milan Cortina and go to an adult gymnastics class together, because when I tell you, it is still something, like I still am that person who shows up at the open gym and I'm trying like the giants, and I'm trying what I can on the beam, I hated beam, but I'm still on bars, still on vault, still throwing a souk every once in a while when I get a wild hair. So we're going to sidebar post Olympics when, you have the capacity to soar in new places. We're going to do that because that would be so fun.
So fun. I'm taking you up on that. I really expect us to do this.
Done. It is. We're going to, both our agents are around. We're going to make this happen. We're going to put it on the calendars, coordinate. It's going to be great. Okay. So you talk about the transition from pusher to pilot. Explain for those of us who don't understand the difference, because it looks, you're both in the same bobsled. But explain to me what that change felt like for you and why it was so critical to putting you in the position you are right now, which is in a great spot heading into Milan Cortina.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, moral of the story, the brakeman, or like the pushing athlete. So for women, we only do mono, which is a single, and then 2 women. And the brakeman, I like to believe, is like the soul and power of the sled. Like they are what keeps the team together, and they're the engine to what makes our sled go fast. The way I see it is they have the most important role in the sense that they generate all the speed at the top, and then whatever they generate, we basically just compound all the way down. And there's nothing that I can do as a pilot that can speed us up throughout the track, but there's definitely things I can do to slow slow us down. So I think that role is like super important to have a really fast and powerful brakeman. But when we're at the start, it's pilot and brakeman. We do a cadence, we hit the sled at the exact same time, and then we contribute together of pushing the sled, but the pilot gets in about maybe like 15 to 20 meters before the brakewoman gets in. And at this point, the brakewoman gets in, and the pilot, it's kind of like, I see it as like a relay, right? She did her most important part of pushing us, make sure we have that speed. And then once we're both in the sled, it's the pilot's job to navigate and drive us down the track. And then when we cross the finish line, the brakes are actually in the back of the sled. So that's where they get their name of the brakeman, is that's their responsibility to pull brakes. So if they don't know where they're at in the track, or if they don't understand, you're flying through the finish line at like 80 miles an hour with no brakes. And then the transition between the two. So I think that the biggest transition is solely focused on like the physical aspect of just like the speed and the power, is how fast, how powerful, how big can you be to be able to accelerate this sled, right? And then for the pilots, the goal is like how precise and perfect, and just overall like kind of flirting with this trying to be on the edge of like super, super fast, but also like being really calm and collected as you're like flying down the ice, because every track in the world is completely different. And so you have to memorize all of these different tracks, memorize the curves. Some of these tracks have different pressures and respond differently. And so it's your job as a pilot to like study those tracks, recognize that, understand like how to execute within those curves. And that becomes really challenging. And I think that's where a lot of people have this idea that it takes just like 4 to 8 years to really hone in on the skill set, because what other people don't recognize is that like other sports and gymnastics, where we grew up having this idea that you need like 10,000 reps, right? You go into the gym and you have a gazillion reps to like really work that muscle memory. Well, in bobsled, you get 6 runs on this new track a week going into your race weekend. And then on the race weekend, you only get 2 runs, 2 on Saturday and then 2 on Sunday in different disciplines. So that's been a bit of a big adjustment as well.
It feels like it's also tapping into something where it's like the pursuit of sort of the perfection of it, right? Where it's like, it almost makes it feel a little bit more like perfect as possible, because you can like approach the track, you only get 6 tries, and you know, the race weekend. How have you felt like the soft skills that you learned in gymnastics with your family, with track and field, have helped you become a very, very good, one of the best bobsled pilots in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that like every aspect of my life has come together. I get the perfect moment of that like preparation and opportunity come together type stuff. And I think at the end of the day with gymnastics, it really taught me the importance of like body awareness and confidence. And so when you're in those sleds, to have body awareness of not only where you are, but where the sled is, where the nose is pointing, how the runners are responding, all of those can make a really big difference in how you're performing, whether you're performing fast, whether it's a crash, however it may be. Like that, like spatial awareness is super important. And then for me, I'm starting to really recognize how important like my family and my circle are, right? Like I really depend heavily on my fiance and my mom and my sisters and my brakemen. Like at the end of the day, like I really think that those people are the people that continue to fill my cup on these long stretches when we're in Europe for 5 months out of the year. Like this is not a like glamorous luxury sport. It's very like blue collar. Like most of these winter sports or even summer sports, when they're prepping for the Olympics, they get to go home in between the season, right? They get to have stretches where they're in areas that are like familiar and comfortable. And meanwhile, like the sliding sports, we're on the road for like 4, 5, 6 months out of the year, just like transporting on tour, moving all of your stuff into a sprinter van every Sunday, driving 8 hours to the next country, unloading all of your stuff, doing it all over again. And so to have the support system that I have, and then to just like know that all the lessons from gymnastics and track has been so helpful in keeping like, I just guess, race day game ready when it comes time to compete.
So part of the podcast is I really want to peel back the curtain of like what it takes to become an Olympian in this sport. And you mentioned something that I think gets brushed under the rug often when we're talking about sports that require a large piece of equipment, which is how the heck do you get your sleds from one place to another when there's like I don't know, the Atlantic Ocean in between. Yeah. Like, how are we moving these, 200-300 pound sleds? Like, how are we moving? Break down the logistics of what it takes to get your sled from your home track to freaking Europe.
Yeah. Oh, AJ, I wish they were 200, 300 pounds. That would be a dream.
They're heavy.
They're super heavy. My sleds are about like somewhere between like 450 to like 500 pounds, depending on like the discipline and depending on like who I'm racing with, because we have a minimum and a maximum, and so you throw in additional weight to help you with that race. But anyways, moral of the story, they're super heavy. They take a lot of people to move, but we actually end up like shipping our equipment over. So the season starts in October. We get these like shipping containers, and we load up all of our stuff that we're going to be traveling with the entire season. And this includes not only all of our equipment, like the sleds, the runners, all the things you're going to need to slide, but also we travel with like our gym set. We travel with a squat rack, plates, med balls, like all the things you would need to like work out, because most of these places don't actually have like a Vasa or 24-hour fitness or something like that, right? And so most of the time we're working out in just like parking garages, or we're like working out in front of the hotel, or just like at the bobsled track outside in like freezing conditions. And so anything you need for that season, you pack it into that shipment crate and it hops on a plane, ships over. The shipment is crazy expensive, like per just one way for one container, and every pilot has two containers, is anywhere from like $7,000 to like $12,000, depending on like what type of year you're sending the stuff over, or if your crate is too heavy. Like it gets into a whole thing. And then once you land, we usually ship all our stuff to Germany. We rent these sprinter vans, and every pilot has their team of 2 brakemen, and you go to your crate and you load everything that's in that shipment crate into your sprinter van, and then you haul all of your equipment to your first location. And we have a new country, a new race every single weekend for 8 weeks straight, with a break of Christmas, and then there's like pre-sliding and qualifications and all of that kind of stuff. So it ends up being like several months just on the road. And every Sunday when we get to a new location, you unload all of your stuff, you set up your equipment, you set up your weightlifting stuff, and then on Tuesday you have your first day of sliding, and right after your first session, you have to prep your runners, prep your equipment for the race that weekend. And prepping our equipment, for example, can take anywhere from like 4 to 8 hours to prep one set of like race polished runners. And so it becomes just like really time consuming. So you really have to like lock in on the time management and just really remember like what your goals are, because sometimes like being on the road like that can be really challenging. And then on Sunday, once you finish your race, you pack everything back into your sprinter van and you drive to the next location. And I think the really fun thing for me is you get the opportunity to wear multiple hats. So not only are you an athlete, but then you're a teammate, but then on top of that, you are a sled mechanic, you are a truck mover, you are all of these things, right? And you start building these like skill sets that like you never would have imagined, right? Like I never thought that I would find my way around a toolbox so well. Like I am really like, and I come home for Christmas, like my father-in-law will just kind of say stuff like, oh my gosh, like you know what these tools are. And I'm like, yeah, I really have to know all the things. And it's so fun. But yeah, so there's a lot that goes into it. Not only do you need to be physically, emotionally, mentally like at your absolute peak, but then you also have to have enough like willpower and strength and just like the ability to be adaptable, because this sport is just exactly that. Like the most successful people are the people who can be the most adaptable and the strongest and the best at what they do.
How do you develop that skill of adaptability?
Yeah, honestly, I think the best way for me, I don't know if it's very like gymnastics mentality, but it's just like very fake it till you make it. And at the end of the day, like
that is prime gymnastics mentality. What are you talking about? That's all we did. All we did.
And for whatever reason, you always make it. I don't know. I don't make the rules, but gymnastics had it right. So yeah, I don't know. I think for me, it's very much just kind of like fake it till you make it, and to just really trust in like the Lord's plan. Like at the end of the day, like all the the trials, the tribulations, the success, everything that comes in is like coming at you at the right time for the right reason, and ultimately will help you in those moments where you need to be resilient and adaptable, and just being more willing to just kind of let go and let things kind of flow as they're supposed to be. And if it looks like a cluster of a situation, that's okay. It's supposed to be, but it'll all work out.
Give me a little bit more in depth into your why, because I know you're here for an Olympic medal. I know you're here to bring home the gold for Team USA and to have all this hard work and all your support system, everything that has worked and led up to this moment. I know you're here for certainly the hardware, but I also know that it's for so much more than that. What is your why? What is the thing that keeps you going in this sport?
Yeah, I think honestly the biggest why for me, it becomes full circle for a couple of reasons. One being just my family. My family has always just been like the biggest support system for me, and they grew up watching sports. And I just remember watching my family just get excited about athletes and sports and the Olympics, and then just watching like my community with Salt Lake hosting 2002 and watching them get excited about 2034, and the passion I have for the hospitality industry, like Olympics and sports, just remind me so much. I think it's a mirror image of athletics. Like hospitality and athletics are strictly like the same in my heart. And so when I look at what athletes and what the Olympics especially are capable of doing, of like bringing cultures together, bringing just like people together, is so empowering to me. And then to recognize that, especially with USA Bobsled, they have this legacy that is among anything else I've ever seen, right? So they are one of the only like NGBs amongst the entire world who's come home with an Olympic medal in every single game since the time women's bobsled started. And that is a legacy that I want to be part of. That's a legacy that inspires me to this day, and it still makes me emotional because I want to be a part of a legacy that makes other generations after me want to be part of that, right? Like it's one thing to be an Olympian and to represent and to have your own personal why, but then on top of it to have this why of like being a part of legacy, or just like even having that purpose of striving to try to be a part of that, I think is just, it is really it's been something that I've really loved. And then to compete and to travel the world, it's just an opportunity that I know I never would have had without this sport. And so that just becomes another why. Like when I have rough race weekends, I get to remember that like I am in these beautiful places. I am getting to experience Zoom calls in the middle of the woods. Like this is just like core memories that are building, that are turning into more reasons to my why bucket than I ever could have imagined.
Yeah, that's so beautiful to hear, because I think so often, like, it's so fascinating. I feel like through this podcast, I've heard so many women explain sort of variations of what you've just said, which is, for the next generation, for the next generation. And I want to leave this place a little better than I found it, a little bit more inclusive than I found it, a little bit more showing people what is possible than I believed was possible. What do you hope that the next generation of girls who are going to turn on the games in 2026 and be like, oh my gosh, that's Kaysha Love. She's a bobsledder. I wonder how I do that. What do you want them to know about you as a person and what it takes and what is possible for them?
Yeah. Well, for starters, I hope when they watch the games that they'll want to start at that age, that bobsled will no longer become like a second opportunity sport, but like a primed sport, that when kids grow up, like, I want to be a bobsled athlete. Like, I wish that my sport in the future no longer becomes like the next best opportunity. Like, it's an incredible sport, an incredible opportunity. And I think it's sad that most of us find this sport in our late to some of us are lucky early 20s, but most of us are finding this sport in like our late 20s, early 30s, and by that time like you want to starting life and your retirement and all of that. And so I think it would be really cool to see the sport of bobsled actually have women especially wanting to like start bobsled tri-skeleton at like 15 or 16. Like that's what we see in some of the like other European programs, but I would love that. And then um, at the end of the day too, I hope that when the younger generations watch bobsled, and specifically like our women's team, that they see that they have a place in bobsled, and especially like women of color. Like I know when I first entered into bobsled, that was kind of a big topic of just like there are no Black people in like the Winter Olympics, and if there are, they're in bobsled, or like maybe now we're seeing them in like speed skating and stuff, right? And so I want that to be not so much of like a taboo, like a niche thing within itself, but like just a reminder and like an acknowledgement that we belong here and like they belong here at the end of the day. And so I think that would be really cool to see a little girl flip on the TV and be like, I want to do that. I belong there, and I know that I could like dominate in that space because of the people that came before me. I think that would be really cool.
It is so cool. I've been thinking about that a lot with this 2026 games, because you have Layla Edwards in hockey, you have Erin Jackson in speed skating, you have you and Mystique Rowe, Lana Maris Taylor, like you have these women in sliding sports as well. And it just seems like we're almost hitting a tipping point that has like been so far in coming, right? So long in coming, I should say. And there's been women who have battled and fought and sweat and cried and worked for this opportunity. But do you feel like there has been progress made in the Winter Olympics for women of color, people of color, that it's not quite as taboo, that it is something that is becoming more of an, I don't want to say like an expectation, but kind of like, yeah, of course, there's a place here.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I think it really does like show how hard like the women that came before us really paved this road. Like they went through like the struggles and all of those things, so now we can see more diversity in winter athletics, and we're seeing it like across every sport now, and I'm really loving that, and I think it's really cool.
What is the mindset that you're carrying into Milan Cortina? What is the mantra, the affirmations that we're telling ourselves?
Yeah, I think that with the end of World Cup season coming on, this season was really full of highs and lows. And when we were in Cortina for the first race of the season, that test event, that track is very, very interesting. And it definitely tested me in ways that I was not expecting it to. And so I'm really excited to return back to that track and be able to take all the lessons that I learned throughout this season and really just apply them to that track. And at the end of the day, I'm become so close with my teammates that I think that this is going to be such an amazing experience. My first games was a COVID games, and I didn't get to have my family nor my friends or any of the people I was close with there. And so that was a really challenging games amongst itself. And so to know that my mom and my family and my best friend who's on the team, who hopefully will be named to the team on Monday, will be there as well, and to just experience this with like my absolute favorite people and to just enjoy every moment, I think will really be kind of a like secret weapon for me. Like I tend to do really well when I feel loved and supported and genuinely just having like a really good time. It just reminds me to just be blessed in that moment and to just recognize that this is really important and to represent our country at like the highest level and to try to come home with like the hardware is the ultimate goal. But at the end of the day, like these memories and these sacrifices are all paying off, and to just do it with so much joy, I think is going to be what I'm looking forward to the most.
I cannot wait. And I think every single venue in the Olympics is beautiful, but there's a soft place in my heart for Cortina. I think y'all got a really sweet little spot. I did some hiking out there in the summer, stopped in Cortina, saw the rings, saw this track being built. And I was like, when you think of a quintessential European mountain town, like this is it. The mountains are everywhere. The people are so friendly. The wine, the pizza, the pasta, like it is just, it's all top notch. So I'm so excited for just even that, right? Getting to spend 2 weeks in a place like that is
great.
Incredible.
It's stunning. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm so excited to root you on. The last question I have for you is, obviously this is the Powerful Podcast. We're about highlighting powerful women such as yourself. So Kaysha Love, what does powerful mean to you?
Powerful means what you embrace on the inside. I think that when you walk into a room, you're unapologetically just you. You allow yourself to just take up the space that you know that you deserve and that you've earned, and you just let yourself be exactly who you've prayed to be. And I think that that is powerful when people genuinely do what they want to do, how they want to do it, in a way that brings them happiness.
Amen to that. Kaysha, thank you so much for being on the Powerful Podcast. Good luck in Italy. We're rooting for you.
Thank you, AJ.
Season 4 of the Powerful Podcast is getting you ready for the Winter Games in Milan Cortina. So look for new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoy this and don't want to miss an episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button.